Ladies and gentlemen, RosterWatch and Player Profiler Nation, we are back and we are live from Mobile, Alabama, the 2024 Reese's Senior Bowl. So happy to be back with you guys today. I'm Alex Dunlap, joined, of course, by Cody Carpentier. We also have Jason Allwine of Player Profiler. We're going to have this thing up on the Player Profiler and the RosterWatch feeds. Make sure that you're following on YouTube, both of those accounts and both of those podcast feeds, wherever it is that you get your podcasts, as we're going to be bringing you this content now that we've Cody Carpentier, Cody's jet setting Cody drives down from Virginia, goes to Atlanta, flies into Dallas,
goes to Shrine Bowl for 2 days.
But you don't get what you don't get is that going to the Shrine Bowl from Dallas is like an hour.
Yeah, hour drive from Frisco. We had an Uber. It's like 45-minute Uber.
What did that set you back?
Had to hang like $37. Had to hang out with Trash Man for 2.5 days. Yeah. Eat Thai food. No steak, only Thai.
That's why you got to come with me, not Trash Man. You get Thai food, Indian food. Trash Man once made me go eat Ethiopian food with him, and you have to eat that with your hands. just disgusting. Look, we have a whole lot to get to today. A bunch of prospects in the 2024 Senior Bowl. Hopefully you guys have followed along with our Shrine Bowl coverage, but this, of course, is the granddaddy here, and we have some good players, man. We have some good players. I think that I'll start out with just throwing it to Cody and just asking you to sort of maybe give the viewers a little bit of a primer as to sort of the dynamics that exist between the American roster and the national roster as it pertains to how these things are built with the quarterbacks on each squad and with the wide receiver groups on each squad. And to be honest, on the American team, feeling like, man, that defense is big up front and that defense is fast on the back end. Whereas you have quarterbacks on that roster that feel it's just the wide receivers on the American team aren't getting quite the juice that the ones on the national team are, simply because of the quarterback play. But
I think the dynamic, after we go back and we had a full day and us go back and look at it, the dynamic of how talented that national offense is. It's got both quarterbacks, Nix and Penix. They have Sam Hartman as well, who actually kind of played up, or I guess you could say I thought Nix and Penix kind of played down.
So three quarterbacks on the national roster: Bo Nix from Oregon, Michael Penix from Washington, Sam Hartman from Notre Dame. Correct. And then we have four quarterbacks on the American side, which are the one guy, the South Alabama kid, right? Mm-hmm. Pratt from Tulane, Joe Milton from Tennessee, and
Spencer Rattler.
Easily forgettable Spencer Rattler, who's smaller than I thought, but regardless, just wanted to make sure that I got it in for people who might just be kind of tuning into the process now to know kind of where they come from and who they are.
Running backs, I think the point I was making was more so the national team has all the offensive talent. They got the quarterbacks. They also got the best running back here, Marshawn Lloyd, and the second best, Rasheen Ali from Marshall. Marshawn Lloyd's from USC, and then the receiver. You talked about the receiving core on the national team, and I think it's quite literally all the receivers that we had highest ranked. It was Roman Wilson from Michigan, who we think had probably the best day at the receiver position. Jacob Cowan from Arizona, Brendan Rice from USC, Devontae Walker, who right now has the highest ADP in mock drafts from North Carolina.
Is that true?
Malachi, he was mocked in round 1 by Daniel Jeremiah. Malachi Corley from Western Kentucky, guy came in 15 pounds heavier than expected. Yak King puts it in his own bio on Twitter. Javon Baker, another guy that I love coming in Central Florida. So all the receivers really, and then you can add in Luke McCaffrey from Rice, Ricky Pearsall from Florida. But all the receivers on that national team, coupled in with Brevin Ford from Minnesota, the tight end, and Theo Johnson. But the point is, all the offensive talent, not all, but a grand amount of that offensive talent is on that team. But then, like you mentioned, the national team, that defense is a unit. The speed that defense has, the interior pressure, of course, by T'Vondre Sweat. I think it's going to be a sick dynamic when that game does happen on Saturday.
I think that the two guys but you said all the guys are on the national roster, and we'll go through these guys one by one. We'll give our thoughts.
Yeah.
But just I feel like right now when we talk about the American roster guys, if you go back year by year at the Senior Bowl, there have been years where there have been just when the quarterbacks have just been awful, where it's been Logan Thomas and Stephen Morris as the best ones that were here,
Last year it was Jaron Hall and Tyson Bagent. Like, this is a whole different crop.
There have been, that's a good point. Jaron Hall, Tyson Bagent, bad. And we've had years where, guys like Josh Allen are here, or Jordan Love, and even those types of spots can be spots where those guys are inconsistent. You see the flashes of brilliance. And then you have years where there are guys here like, Baker Mayfield or I'm trying to Kirk Cousins or Russell Wilson. Whenever you have dudes who really make the wide receivers that they're playing with look good. It feels to me like with Penix and with both, do you guys want to go just position by position?
I think we should go position by position.
Okay, so let's start with quarterbacks. It feels to me with Penix and with Bo Nix, who the two that came in with the most steam. Clearly, they're having an effect on their wide receivers that makes their wide receivers look a little bit better. They're putting the balls in better spots, I
would argue. I mean, my biggest takeaway really from the event in totality was
the American offenses were bad because the quarterbacks weren't I can understand why you can nitpick Bo Nix and you can nitpick Penix and you can say that ball was bad, that ball was bad, but on the totality on the whole day, it was a better passing display from those guys than it was clearly from Milton. Milton looks bad.
Milton looks bad. Rattler had a terrible interception. And the thing that was kind of weird was that second practice was kind of brutal to watch because of how it was organized, but it was like 70% of the throws were underneath, within 8 yards, 7 yards of the line of scrimmage. And the reason I kind of pushed back a little bit right there was just because I thought that Penix and Nix thing where we did fully expect them to come out and just bang, hit everybody, hit everyone perfect. And there was a lot of drops, but coupled with those drops, there was a lot of times where sometimes Penix would put that ball not exactly where it needed to, a little behind or a little low. Nix also had a couple of those throws, but I wasn't really that oh yeah, these guys are teeing these receivers up. The receivers are pretty solid, but I was kind of left a little disappointed about both quarterbacks. I thought Hartman played up to these guys.
So Jason, you were driving in as we were watching you got here just in time for the second one, which was the American team. You got your fill of Joe Milton and the South Alabama kid and Pratt and Rattler. How do you if you're going to stack those dudes up, how do you stack them up? What do you think about those guys? Because I do think that there's a discussion to be had about what Cody and I saw out of Nix and saw out of Penix and I think on the totality they were good enough to give us what I was saying earlier is that sometimes the quarterback play is so bad that you can't even get a good evaluation on the wide receivers.
Which was last year.
We're getting we were able to get a good enough evaluation to say Tank Dell's sick and Jaden Reed's sick. We were able to see that stuff. But this year it feels some of these guys can hit all the throws. So we'll talk about that. But as far as the afternoon guys, the American roster dudes, how do you stack them up?
Yeah, I mean, to be completely honest, and I don't know if it was low expectations or the fact he was wearing the Tom Brady 12, but the South Alabama quarterback might have been the best one today. He had a couple good throws while he had the time in the pocket, and Spencer Rattler and Joe
What is his name? I need
Carter Bradley.
Carter Bradley.
Carter Bradley, which is the most Southern Alabama name you could come up with.
Carter Bradley.
Carter Bradley.
It is way up there.
It comes off your mouth like butter.
So, I mean, and I think that's just a testament to how bad Spencer Rattler was and how disappointing Joe Milton was. You mentioned that the passes barely went more than 8 yards, and that's true. They were scared to take shots, and it was very, very hard to watch. But you can still watch the wide receivers. You can see their footwork. You can see the routes they run. You can see the separation. And I think that was enough to be disappointed in some of the wide receivers that we might start talking about.
That thing with Milton, he didn't his flak jacket. That pissed me off because his flak jacket was just back behind him. Yeah. He was just not it didn't feel like he was dialed in.
Well, Cody's
He
talking-
made
when
one
says a
nice
flak
throw.
jacket, he's talking about the rib protectors
Yeah.
that they have, and
Yeah.
Milton's is just pointing out of the back. It feels like it's
not tied up.
encumbering. It, like,
He does.
you wonder why he didn't get that thing tied up. It's like,
And then
man,
he's like, he makes like one nice throw, does a backflip. He's just tooling around. It's like this dude's known for having the strongest arm in college football, and we didn't see him push that ball at all.
oh yeah, well, Nagy all week, because Jim Nagy's been going to doing the media circuit, talking with all the going on Good Morning Football and just everything, and saying like they're asking about the quarterbacks. Everyone's talking about the quarterbacks, and he's like, well, with Joe Milton, what they're about to see is a guy who can move, and once they get to see his arm display,
I want to see it. I want to see it.
Well, it's just people are talking about Milton as if saying people are just they've gone over. Like, so here's what the narrative is now, guys. The narrative that you're going to get for the rest of but there's a few narratives. Like, there's the narrative of the epic tackle class, right? The narrative that there could be 8 to 9 offensive tackles in this class. That's already starting to take hold. We're
In round one.
Like, round one offensive tackles. That's already starting to take hold, right? The other narrative that's starting to take hold is that Joe Milton by far has the strongest arm in this class. And not only is the strongest arm in this class, but if you put him up against every quarterback in the league right now, he has the strongest arm of anybody. That's actually something that people around here are actually floating. And so the idea is, all right, like, let's see the nuclear bomb. Like, let's see it. But the thing is, he dumps it all. He dumps it off 4 yards from the line of scrimmage the whole time. And so we haven't really got to see much of that. The times we've seen him uncork it was what, twice?
Yeah.
And they were way off. So it's just it's been disappointing from that. Cody.
Rumor has it that he could throw a potato 120 yards from a knee.
right up over them mountains over there.
I have a question though. This is my first Senior Bowl, and I am curious how much of this is first day jitters, I guess you could call it.
It happens.
Quarterbacks working with these wide receivers for the first time. I mean, like, can the timing get better? Can this connection grow?
I mean, they were out there. They were out there yesterday stretching. Okay. So they went out there with no pads on. They were out there stretching, and like they've been here for 24, 36 hours. So I mean,
Spencer Sanders has been throwing to Xavier Legette for almost 1,300
yards.
I mean, Spencer Rat,
and also Pratt with Jaquan Jackson. Spencer Sanders is the Oklahoma State kid.
That's right.
Okay. But Jaquan Jackson with Pratt too. Like, there's a couple duos here that do have. So we saw the one thing with Pratt where Pratt did get that arbitrary warm up where he goes out there and it's like, oh, Jaquan Jackson just happens to be the guy running the 1-on-1 rep with him, and then Pratt bang hits him. Second rep, Pratt, Jaquan Jackson. I was like, really? How about you go work with somebody else here?
Yeah. So as far as quarterbacks, I think the way that I would sum it up, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, the two guys who were here with the highest expectations. To me, there were throws that they probably like back, but through the course, I think there's just a lot to be said in my experience doing this over the course of a practice. Being able to give us a good evaluation on these wide receivers, putting enough balls in good spots to where it's like these guys are throwing it like professionals. I can see the same about Hartman, and if I'm looking at the American roster, the only one I can say the same thing about is Pratt from Tulane. And clearly that can change throughout the course of the week, but that's the way it's sort of been so far.
Can I ask you a question? I can't ask Jason because Jason didn't get to see Hartman, but Hartman v. Pratt. I thought Hartman played up when he was playing with Penix and Nix in those rotations. For me, obviously it's those two guys, right? But the next two I would say is that Pratt-Hartman tier.
Yep.
And I think stacking Hartman and Pratt is a conversation.
Milton just brings so much to the table as far as athleticism. But it's like, I mean, I gotta see him be a quarterback. That's what he's here for. All right, so let's move on to running back. And thanks to everybody in the chat. Thanks to everybody for being here. If you guys could please remember to like the show, subscribe to the channel, wherever it is that you're watching this. We would certainly appreciate that. It helps people to find the show, and we're here doing work for you guys, trying to do the best we can about getting you the information.
Boots on the ground
in a clear, quick, and concise way. So let's talk about running backs. And to me, dude,
not close.
This thing starts with This thing starts at USC. Starts with your boy Marshawn
Lloyd, dude. He was. I mean, he looked good at South Carolina. I thought a couple years ago, I was like, man, this guy's going to come out. He's going to be solid. I thought he was going to come out last year. They transferred to Southern
The other
California.
USC.
USC to USC, coast to coast. He came in, weighed in 212, 217. Geez, I can't talk. 217 was 5'9", 8 3/4 inch hands. But when he hit that field, he's rocked up. He's got the upper body to withstand the hits. He's got the lower body and the tenacity. Not quite to the level of Pacheco, but I tell you what, man, his cuts, when you watch it on film, there's some of these guys out here that we will talk about here at the other positions. When you watch them on film, it's like, ooh, but then when you see him here live, it's like, Lloyd, it's the same. You watch that film against on USC when he's hitting the spot, bang, cuts it back, and he's going 90 degrees the opposite direction. Same thing here, 4, 5, 6 times. He is, to me, clear cut. And I'm coming from the Shrine Bowl.
What does he weigh?
217.
Oh God,
dialed,
dude, I'm
dialed,
telling you,
and he's
man.
good out of the backfield.
Marshawn Lloyd is good. He's got great hands out of the backfield. I was so disappointed to hear. What did you say? 8 3/4.
8 3/4. Yeah, but
So,
hey,
which is
hey,
smaller
it's
than
Abram Smith, man.
Well, it's not Abram Smith, but it's kind of Kenneth Dixon-y, right? But look, I didn't notice anything with the hands. We can go look back and see if fumbles were an issue at USC. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at that because I didn't realize his hands were that small. He didn't catch the ball like that. And you guys can go to the RosterWatch Twitter and see a clip that I put out of him behind the line of scrimmage, just with a sick cut, then the sick shed ability right there through the line of scrimmage, and the acceleration through the second, third level of the defense. Now, of course, it's day one. These guys are trying to stay up a little bit, but it wasn't one of these where he was going to be touched on that play anyway, right? So, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, Marshawn Lloyd, to me, by far looks like the best running back that's here. I honestly don't know at this point what could even happen through the rest of the week to even change that.
Nothing. I don't think any of these guys can jump in.
Because I've seen what I've seen. Now, there are others. I know you guys might want to talk about Ali, Rasheen Ali, I believe.
Rasheen Ali. He didn't get to see Rasheen Ali, but
okay.
But Rasheen Ali was another guy in that practice that if you do scroll through Twitter, you're going to see stuff, and people are big fans of him. I was talking to Matty Q, I'm texting him during the thing, and he's watching live at home. He could be the fourth person in his couch right now, but things got to be things. But Rasheen Ali from Marshall weighed 204, 5'11". Wish he weighed a couple more pounds, but he's a good running back, very good north-south running back, I thought. But again, I don't think that he's a guy that can get up to that Marshawn Lloyd conversation. Cody Schrader, to be honest with you, is one guy that I did come in and my expectations from Missouri. He was a transfer in from a smaller school, had a great season at Missouri, over 1,000 yards on the ground, and a very good pass catcher. Prolific game. I think he had over 250 all-purpose yards against Tennessee in a game this year. 207 pounds, 5'8". You pointed out smaller calves. He also didn't make any plays. He's got these really thick thighs and these small calves and ankles. It's not your prototypical running back build just when you're in that 205, 207 range. But Schrader was kind of a guy that I would say I was a little bit. He's one dude though out of this list that I think could come back tomorrow and hit it hard. He could jump up to that Lloyd conversation, but I'm not sure at this point from what I've seen from Lloyd that I think Schrader could jump over him.
So on the American roster, the running backs that we have here, Michael Wiley from Arizona. We have Amani Bailey from TCU, Ray Davis from Kentucky. I mean, these are some good players. Dejon Edwards, number 23 from Georgia. And then Cody Schrader, number 28. Hey, Cody brings up Cody Schrader, and I'm just like, well, when I think back, and I know you got to talk a little bit to Michael Wiley afterwards. Yeah. Man, Michael Wiley to me, number 8.
He was
very
consistent,
very consistent through the course of practice. Really good as far as a pass catcher. I'm gonna have to go back and just see. We've done now with our top 25 wide receivers. I still haven't gotten into the running backs and stuff. This is for a lot of these guys. Certainly for like the Marshall kid and the rest of them. It's my first exposure to them. But as far as Michael Wiley, I think I came out of this practice, the American roster practice, thinking that Michael Wiley was probably the guy that I had the most interest in, especially once I got the word from you that he weighs what?
209.
209.
Which we didn't expect. We're talking about his body size.
I was driving home. I'm like, man, is number 8 like 195, or
Yeah.
could this be like a Rashad White type of player that we're talking
that's the
about?
build, yeah.
And it turns out that he has the height, he has the BMI to maybe do something like that. You got to talk to him. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say he definitely came off reserved in the interview, but I mean, these are these kids' first time kind of meeting with the media and stuff like that. But he spoke that he really wants to learn how to run harder and has lots of, as you mentioned, he caught the ball, he ran the ball, he found space, he did everything, and I do think that skill set could come in handy. And I do agree with you that he's probably the better running back of today. I really liked him and what's Dajan Edwards out of UGA. He surprised me too.
Nice cuts.
Yeah,
did you dap up Michael Wiley after you talked to him?
I did.
Yeah, really?
That's a common thing though.
Okay.
I just do that.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Cool.
He was really the only person I got to speak to, but I did listen to.
You know who I didn't dap up, but I shook hands with was Isaiah Davis. Isaiah Davis from South Dakota State, a kid that was once going to go to the Shrine, ended up coming to the Senior Bowl. 6 foot tall, 220 pounds. This kid has 10 1/4 inch hands, which is the size. The story you always tell me, you've told me 3-4 times now. Meeting Zach Evans, the exact same size as Zach Evans.
That was just a high schooler.
And that was a high schooler. But his 10 1/4 was what his number was last year at the combine. But I shook his hands, and I was telling you, very few people have engulfed my hands. Not that I have large hands or anything, but I have strong little meat hooks. And Adrian Peterson's one of them. And Isaiah Davis.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. We're gonna get back to this. I promise. Do you know what they say about AP? Is it
squeeze oranges?
Is he really tries to squeeze people's hands hard?
No, I know. I met him and he had a pen in his hand like this, and he was signing.
Oh.
And he had the pen in his hand, and he shook my hand with the pen in his hand.
Even with the pen, he still squeezed it.
With the pen in his hand, went like this, and like literally just like, and I was like,
he wants you to know he's.
Are you kidding me, dude?
Dude, he wants to look you in the eye. He wants to shake your hand until it feels like it's about to break, and he wants you to know that he's in charge. And he did it to you even with he had a pen in his hand.
With a pen in his hand.
What a beta you are.
That was like a decade ago too, and I was like, I'll never forget.
All right.
But anyway, Isaiah Davis was a running back that I kind of had a little bit of expectation. Doesn't look 220 when you're watching him down there. He also didn't seem to get a lot of reps. He didn't seem to get as many reps as some of these other guys did in the lineup. So Isaiah Davis is a guy that I want to see more of tomorrow because the build is right. 6 foot tall, 220 pounds, massive hands, 75-inch wingspan, the largest here. He's got the whole build to do it, and he was dominant at South Dakota State with that amazing offensive line and that amazing football team. So Isaiah Davis is definitely one I want to see in the next day or two.
What about the other Davis, Ray?
Came in with some helium. Came in with some X, some X.com helium.
Yeah, man. I was talking to my buddy Dave Richard.
Yep.
What's Dave? Is he
Dave Richard?
CBS.
CBS.
CBS Sports. You guys all know Dave, and he was like after the practice, Dave was all like, "I got to go find Ray Davis." Apparently, he was in.
He caught a lot of footballs.
Yeah, I feel like he's a dude you probably hear a lot about.
He's a bowling
guy
ball.
that really cropped up most for me. But just one more quick one. Jason mentioned Dajan Edwards, who was kind of a backup or a 1B type of running back there at Georgia, but 5'9", 202, 9-inch hands. He maybe in the backfield made one of the more impressive backfield cut / spin / accelerate to the second level.
Vision. His was he was the vision one.
Yeah,
it was consistent vision.
Very good vision guy. So we're gonna keep an eye on that one. And obviously, if he's here, he's a dude who scouts wanted to see in this kind of setting. So. Oh gosh, I'm looking at this on video, Cody. We are sunburned. Like it's this side of our face.
You can tell I got there late.
You can tell we were sitting this way watching football this direction because it was like this all day.
Oh man, we need to get some sunscreen.
Alex has got the old sunglass right there.
Okay. Let's move on to wide receiver. And of course, you can find more information about all this over at RosterWatch.com, over at PlayerProfiler.com. And make sure that you continue to tune in here. Make sure to subscribe to the channels. Make sure to click like and also find the podcast feeds. We're going to be having this content more and more, and then of course
Draft season, baby.
through the combine, through the pro day tour, all the way through the training camp tour. You get it all right here. All right, wide receivers. This is where it gets tough, dude.
Can we add one more thing? Dylan Lobb, because I know there's a lot of fans out there of Dylan Lobb, this New Hampshire kid.
Okay.
5'9.5", 210. What was the first thing you said when we saw him? He's jacked up. First off, he's jacked up.
What did I say? I mean, he just
You
looks
said
like Rex Burkhead.
he does. He looks exactly like Rex Burkhead. I think the story is great. I think he's a very
a real coach on the field.
solid receiver.
Gym rat.
He's a good kid.
He
but
brings his lunch pail to work.
But listen, it's one of those things where the story's great, right? We got Jaden Sheridan from Monmouth over at the Shrine Bowl. We got Dylan Lobby from New Hampshire here. These guys needed this light shined on them. They're very solid football players. They're going to make rosters. They're going to be special teams tanks. They're going to be RB3s. They're going to grow and get opportunities as RB2s. But Dylan Lobby is not in the same conversation as a Lloyd, as an Ollie, even I say as a Schrader or a Wiley at this point. But I did want to just at least get that out there because I know there's a lot of people that like Dylan Lobby, and I don't mind him either. But he's just a small school kid that got a build. He's got a nice build to him, but I just don't think he's in the same conversation. So
every single year at the Senior Bowl, there are slot type wide receivers that get into slot option routes against these nickel corners and these linebackers that end up really showing out when they get a two-way go against these guys in space. Last year, it's your Jaden Reeds and your Tank Dells, but you can go back year after year after year after year, all the way to the Cooper Cups of the world, and you can find these guys. I want to start out with those dudes, right? Because some of the outside wide receivers we'll get to, and we'll talk to about them more. But this year we have Roman Wilson from Michigan. We have Ladd McConkey from UGA. We have Anais Smith from Texas A&M. And there's somebody that I'm missing? And Jacob Cowing from Arizona. So for me, Roman Wilson was awesome today. Like, let me just get this take off. So between Roman Wilson and Ladd McConkey, Roman Wilson's the guy who's going to kill you with the silky smoothness. He's gonna go out there. He's gonna run a great route. He's gonna find his little spot. He's gonna make it really easy for his quarterback to put it in a real good spot for him. He's gonna frame it really well. He's gonna get upfield, and he's gonna get it done for you. He's a really good player, man. Really, really good hands. Ladd McConkey from Georgia is a little bit different with the way that he wins. He wins by breaking your ankles. He is a very explosive change of direction player, not silky smooth. A separation specialist via explosion underneath. And these two guys showed this in spades today. I thought that the other two, Anais Smith, had some really, like you were saying, like he's a nice player. He looks like he's pretty nice, pretty good. I thought that the one guy, Jacob Cowing, who had a lot of high hopes for, especially after watching that Cotton Bowl game versus Oklahoma, whenever he really put some of his speed on display. I feel like there was some stuff with him, with his ball tracking, with his it's just whenever you see the way a guy like Roman Wilson just addresses a football, you know what I mean? And then you see the way a guy like Jacob Cowing just addresses a football, just as a pure receiver. It's when you get that apples to apples comparison, running those same routes, doing the same stuff. I feel like Jacob Cowing today. Look, I love Cowing. This is why you come to the Senior Bowl, though, is to kind of see this stuff. So I'd like to hear from both you guys about sort of some of these smaller sort of slot types and sort of what you thought about them and how you stack those guys up.
Roman, I was just looking up as you were talking the heights and weights from last year's class. Roman comes in almost identical to Jaden Reed, and Cowing does come in almost identical to Tank Dell. I will say Jacob Cowing was a guy, and this was all a big tier for me, especially just looking at Cowing. I think it was Cowing here, Corley, McConkey, all in this conversation, and even Anais Smith was up here too. Well, you kind of up in that for the Senior Bowl conversation. All these smaller dudes with the routes. And I think the big thing was Cowing, I thought, had potential to be Tank. He does not skate. He does not skate Like the takeaway of last year was Tank literally just ice skates across the field, does things at will, and nobody does that this year. The only person that's close, I would say, is McConkey. McConkey is twitchy and he's nasty in those misdirections at the top of the route.
He's got springs in his feet.
Yeah, because he
he
had like a triple move at the top of a break where he was going to go inside, faked outside, faked back inside, and then went outside. And I was just like, did he just change his mind 3 times in there? But he can do that. And the directions, and there's spitterings and sputterings of round 2 and up into that high conversation for Ladd McConkey that we've heard over here. The other thing is like I said with Cowing. Cowing was one that my expectations was that he had the ability to come in here and really rise into that high conversation. Not really the result we saw. Roman Wilson, though, I think on the side of McConkey, we can talk about this before we came on here, was like if we're addressing an all Senior Bowl team right now, Roman and McConkey are in that conversation, but Roman was just too smooth, too consistent all day, and doing the things, again, like I talked about with Marshawn Lloyd, that you saw on film, underneath, dominating and just creating separation, finding holes in zones, addressing the football, making every catch, being Mr. Consistent. He did have a couple spots in the one-on-ones very early where he had a couple drops, but then all day was very good for Roman Wilson.
Yeah, it was. Now you weren't here for you were there for Anaya Smith.
Yeah, afternoon, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm a Michigan fan, so I mean, I can speak on Roman Wilson for
Perfect.
sure.
What do you think?
I mean, this is someone I've been hyped on for a minute. I had Matty Kiwoom on my Wake and Take show. We previewed the New Year's 6 bowl games, and I just talked about Roman Wilson a bit. The stats don't pop off the page, but he has that clutch factor. And then you saw it in the Alabama game. They need one big 4th down conversion or 3rd down conversion, whatever it was. He goes and gets a 30-yard catch right down the sideline. Beautifully thrown ball by McCarthy, but then a great catch by him as well. And that's just what you see time and time again from Roman Wilson. And I just think when he's catching passes from Justin Herbert next season, it's going to be a really good
Oh God.
Right? I mean, am I wrong? There's no way Jim Harbaugh doesn't go after Roman Wilson.
I like how we just missed out on the whole, I'm a Michigan fan, but we all know he lives in Georgia right now.
Oh, my dad's from Michigan.
No, that's a good call.
It's been a rough 20-something years too.
Yeah, dude, they're gonna be like, he's gonna be a Charger.
Oh yeah, 100%.
He's absolutely gonna be a Charger. Dude,
yeah, it's gonna go Brock Bowers, Roman Wilson, Blake Corum. That's the Chargers draft. Telling you right here on this show.
The Roman Coliseum out there, man. Okay, so the rest of the wide receivers, Cody, I think, has more to say about Malachi Corley out of Western Kentucky than I do. But I think that probably we'll start at the top, and we'll talk about Brendan Rice out of USC, Jerry Rice's kid, 6'2", 212 pounds, 9 3/4-inch hands.
Not built like Jerry.
78 3/8-inch wingspan. Not built like Jerry. I walked out there, and he's wearing number 13. He's wearing number 13, and I thought to myself, dude, he's a lot bigger than I thought he was on his film. Like he's
bricked up.
Yeah, because on his film, I thought to myself, and it could have just been what did he wear? Number 2 in college.
Man, he might have just been doing curls before he came.
Yeah, I thought it could have just been the USC jersey and the uniform. But I kind of thought he looked a little bit like Robert Woods when he's crafty, find the soft spot in the zone type of. Outside, but kind of big possession receiver types. He's more than that, because we saw the fact through the first 3 one-on-ones they had to call them back because the DBs had to hold on him
every time. I was like,
even when they did hold, he was still making the catches, which is a vast cry of difference from Xavier Legette out of South Carolina, who comes in here.
Rice was bigger than Legette.
And doesn't even get held and still can't create separation or make any contested catches to save his life. I mean, as far as a guy who fell, maybe hey, how about let's talk about, because Brendan Rice and Legette were 2 guys who we had coming in here. We said, dude, it's between those 3, and let's throw Javon Baker into the conversation too. My take on the way that Javon Baker looked today was a little bit absent.
Rashee Rice-esque.
A little, yeah, but Rashee Rice was absent last year. Puka Nacua at times was absent. I mean, sometimes at the Senior Bowl, it just doesn't
Takes a day.
It takes a day, and also maybe it takes a week, or maybe it just doesn't really come. It's with Javon Baker. I wonder, since this is an all-star game sort of setting, where at UCF with Javon Baker, the whole deal was like, look, Javon Baker is such a violent kind of alpha kind of. He's going to be in the tops in your dog ratings, I'm sure. Just get him get him the football. Just let him do what he does. In a spot like this, man, some of these quarterbacks, they're trying to get to the high percentage passes. They don't want stuff showing up on Twitter with them throwing a bunch of picks. I think that maybe a setting like this, we might not get to see the best of Javon Baker. I hope that we do. I don't think he looked bad. He had a couple of good reps. But those were the three guys that I had coming in as far as the pure sort of outside kind of, possible X, maybe even stretch flanker types if we're talking about Legette. How do you sort of stack them up? And I'd like to hear from you about anything that you thought about Legette as well after getting to see him live.
Rice, one big takeaway obviously was the weigh-ins. The weigh-ins came in. Legette listed 6'3", 227 on the website. Comes in under 6'1", 6'007 or something like this. 223, under 9-inch hands. He comes in today after using the second practice. So we saw Brendan Rice at first. Brendan Rice comes in.
Can we just say that 6'2", 9-inch hands means a lot more for wide receivers than it does for a running back?
Correct. Yeah. So Brendan Rice came in 6'2", 212, looking 6'4", 225. Xavier Legette came in 6'1", 223, looking 6 foot, 212.
Brendan Rice looks like Michael Pittman.
Yes. Brendan Rice looks like the dominant alpha of the event.
He's wearing that 13. You think he looks like Mike Evans. And he doesn't, but compared to the others, it's like he's a big.
He's the alpha.
He's the big
whole event. Yep. And I think he had a good enough day where I think he needs to be at that top conversation. And we had him up in that top conversation. The other two guys you mentioned, Legette, probably the biggest faller on day one at the receiver position, I would say, because we had him up there in that conversation. He shows dynamic ability, but again, we also were coming in with the intentions of him being 6'3", 227, running a 4.3.
He's his own quarterback throwing the football, man.
And it's not even connecting.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a big thing. And then also on top of that, Javon Baker, you brought it up. I think you laid the land perfectly. I threw the comp out there of the Diggs, the Robert Woods in that category, the Rashee Rice area. And he's having a Rashee Rice-esque day one where it just really didn't tick. But he also didn't have a bad day. It just was sometimes the guys like this that have the aggressive route running style, and if they're not targeted, you don't notice them. Yeah. And he's just a guy that I was just like, hey, damn, wish no. And there's just opportunities just weren't going to him. So I want to see a lot more out of him. Definitely, but I think it's clear cut at this point. I would take Rice over Xavier Legette about 13 times out of 9.
Gosh. Well, so what did you just like watching Legette today?
Yeah.
What, if you were to describe him stylistically or what you saw, like, can you even describe anything stylistically or
not really? So obviously you hear all the AJ Brown and DK Metcalf comps coming in, and then you see him wearing the tucked-in jersey into the pads, so you could see his abs and all that stuff. But then like you mentioned, he looked way smaller than the 6'3", 230 pounds I was expecting. And in fact, for the first few offensive snaps I saw, I thought Ryan Flournoy was Xavier Legette.
Oh, dude, Flournoy is good. And so, dude, he's wearing number 13 for the other team. And dude, it hurts me badly because our boy Jordan Whittington from Texas had to drop out of that thing. Whittington had that 13 for him. That's what he wore in college. But dude, Flournoy, where's he even from?
Southeast Missouri State.
He's good.
He looked
good. Yeah,
I think they're the Cardinals, maybe.
I don't even know who that's.
The Red Hawks.
So he's 6'1" and 180, 200 pounds, but big 10-inch hands.
He looks
so
big.
Yeah. So he's one of these dudes who, whenever I compare him to say, let's see, who can I compare? So Jamari Thrash.
Give me
some of these other guys that are, that are sort of the same. Let's just kind of go through you guys. So let's go through the American roster. Just a quick. One thing about the one thing I'll say about Jamari Thrash. Jamari Thrash now is out of Louisville. almost 6 feet tall, 5'11", 3/4, 185. Looked a little bit better in some spots than I thought he would. Still not in love with him, but he was a guy whose tape I didn't like. And today, I got to admit, he made a few plays. What do you think of Thrash?
I think he looked good. I don't know if I saw the good plays because I did show up like 20 minutes late-ish into the American half. So I don't know if I saw as much as Thrash at the late end. I remember
I think it's number 3. Yeah.
I remember I kept looking at him and he was directing my attention, which is a good thing.
3.
But I don't remember as many standout plays from him, to be completely honest.
Cody, Johnny Wilson is from Florida State. He's 6'6", 237 pounds. We thought that maybe he could be a candidate to move to tight end.
No,
After seeing
sir.
his legs.
No, sir.
We said to ourselves,
He needs to play basketball.
yeah, he's not going to be a tight end. I feel like he could be a supercharged Colin Johnson type of player. What do you have on?
I think one of
Johnny
the big notes that we wrote down was consistently his feet were just so slow after catching the football. He'd catch it or he'd try to catch it, and sometimes he slipped before he even could catch it.
He's
And
lumbering.
when he did catch it, it was like he took 3 steps and tried to get, and it was like, what are we doing here? And he'd fall or something. It was just not very fluid at all. His movement, his ability to get moving was very
He's
slow.
lumbering.
He's a massive target.
Yes.
6'7". Again, you can't argue with the contested catches and the catch radius and things of that nature, but you also have to get open in the NFL. You also just can't say, hey guys, Harrison Smith is going to come down there and pick that ball off if you're just putzing around.
Yeah.
So he's a guy that, again, we don't think he's not going to be like who was the guy a couple years ago that Matt was yelling about to change positions to change to tight end. That was
Hakeem Butler.
Butler was one of them, but he's not.
Matt always yells at people to change position.
I can't remember who the hell the one was. But anyway, you get the point. He's not going to be a guy that I see a lot of people on Twitter talking about that too. Like, oh, yeah, you can play tight. No, Fusuvu's a big guy right there with this. With the underlying metrics, all the underlying metrics are telling you Wilson over Keon Coleman right now. And Keon Coleman's, of course, 6'4", 210, very good prospect. Not at the Senior Bowl or Shrine Bowl, but Wilson in that same offense, 6'7", big dude. But I'm not sure right now how I feel about him.
The movement was awful. It was pretty bad. I posted a clip to my Twitter at JFootball, and you can find it. Posted a bunch of highlights from today and lowlights. And it was him and Xavier Legette were lined up on the same side. So I thought that'd be fun to film. And he ends up catching the ball in this clip, but it just doesn't look like he should. He runs straight and then he kind of backpedals more than a few times to get into the space he's trying to. And it just looks so goofy and wrong every time he was running these routes today. It just did not look good.
Ricky Pearsall from Florida was another guy that I thought might be in that Ladd McConkey, Roman Wilson discussion. He's a little bit bigger at almost 6'1", 193, but he was, he's a guy that had a kind of quiet day. We'll leave it at that. I think that people are going to want to we've gotten to the very end without talking about Devontae Walker from North Carolina, long, lanky, tall, almost an 80-inch wingspan. He can go up and get it, man. His hands are big enough. Right at 9-inch hands. He's number 14, isn't he? Yep. So when I watch 14 from North Carolina, what I think to myself is, dude, this is a guy who I see some aspects, especially kind of crossing over the. There was the one play where it was the drag, the deep drag, the deep dig dagger kind of route, where he's crossing over the middle and shows this awesome sort of, the gauntlet drill kind of thing to be able to get his hips pointed to the quarterback and gets his arms up and gets vertical to really climb the ladder to go get a football. You didn't necessarily see it out of him every time. I would have liked to see out of this guy the ability to just run past dudes on those 9 routes that they gave him on the outside and get open. And he wasn't always able to get open. Now, he did get held, and he was also a dude who at the end of practice, he was one of the guys who the national team decided, that they were going to give they give the one-on-one reps sometimes to the best from each team. They did think Tez Walker was obviously one of the best because they gave him that last route in one-on-ones in front of the whole team. The first one he got held. They made him run back and go do it again with Nix the second time.
Yeah.
And then he ended up beating Kalen King.
I do want to say with the Kalen King thing, the rumor on Twitter right now is that he called King out. He chose King.
Oh, okay.
As his defender as well. So
well,
and King's a pretty solid corner.
He did end up beating him. We actually have that clip up over on the RosterWatch X. But any final thoughts you guys have on wide receivers before we get on to maybe just something quick on tight ends and get out of here?
I just wanted to ask you, like, if I, put my finger in your ribs and said you have to draft one of these guys, are you drafting Jaquan Jackson or Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint?
Jaquan Jackson.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, from Tulane, who looked like a kick return specialist to me coming in, and nothing more. He's actually kind of better than that. He's pretty
okay.
He's very fast. But I wouldn't put either of those guys at the very. Do you have a Malachi Corley thing that you want to get fired?
No, Malachi Corley just first off, happy he came in 15 pounds. Like last year, I wasn't happy when Rashee Rice came in 13 pounds heavy. Right, he was 187 on the site. I think he weighed 200 at the Senior Bowl. Looked sluggish, looked slow. Corley's a guy weighed 200, came in weighed 215. And he comes in, I think, at 5'10 and a half. And I was happy with that. And what he showed today was enough. It wasn't, exponential. I don't know what the hell the word is I'm trying to think of, but it wasn't amazing. He was fine. He's also a yak guy, so you're not going to find much yak stuff in practice like this and these opportunities. So I think I saw enough out of Corley. I'm not gonna hurt him. I think he's going to stay right at in that 4 or 5 area at the event. For
the tight ends, for me. The ones that stood out to me most were on the national team, number 84, Theo Johnson from Penn State, 6'6", almost 260 pounds. Gosh,
big boy.
He's that big,
and he's a pretty good athlete.
Theo Johnson, he's probably the best. Gosh,
over Jaheim Bell.
He's sick. Whoa, how much does Jaheim Bell weigh? I didn't know.
237. 237.
Dude, Theo Johnson weighs 260. But he's a receiving threat. Like he's a big time receiving threat.
All the passes thrown.
He catches everything.
Bell's 244.
So,
okay.
So Jaheim Bell from Florida State is 6'2", 244.
I'll take that.
Looks great. And then there's also Jared Wiley, the Texas transfer to TCU, 6'6", 263 or 253.
Wiley's
those
nice
are the three guys. Those are the three guys that really, really stood out to me. Of course, we'll continue to watch the rest of the week. But anything you guys want to get fired up as far as the tight ends for all the tight end premium early drafters?
I want to see more. Obviously it's tough. We already mentioned the quarterback play from the American team, but Ben Sinnott from Kansas State made a couple just like pretty good plays.
That's what he does in every game.
Okay, it's just like pretty good.
Ben Sinnott makes a couple, dude, and he,
four for 48.
Versus Texas, he was wide open down at the very end whenever Texas made the stand against Kansas State to keep their CFP hopes alive, and home Howard just missed him. So Sinnott, good player for sure, but man, Jared Wiley. Do you want to talk about Jaheim Bell at all from Florida State? I mean, I was saying he looks like a mini Njoku.
He's sick nasty, dude. People, if one of the most watched games this year was Florida State LSU back in like week 1 or 2, whatever it was in that Camping World early season game. He had a 41-yard rushing touchdown, and that was a thing last year. And the reason Bell transferred, I think, was because South Carolina used him in this abnormal way. He had like 40-some carries in 2022. And then 2023, he transferred to Florida State, was a part of the undefeated team, and had a good season. And he is just this. He's a super good athlete, super fluid tight end. And for me right now, in the whole class behind Brock Bowers and Jatavian Sanders, Bell's going to continue to be in that spot. And it's going to be hard-pressed to get me off of that. But I do think what Jared Wiley brings and how he looked today made a couple of nasty catches.
What about Theo?
Theo's good. I just don't think he's the athlete that either of those other guys are.
What about Theo?
Theo's in the chat.
What about Theo? Theo's in the chat. Theo, stand up for your boy. You got any tight end takes to get off of here?
No, I guess just that Ben Sinnott one, but I do kind of agree. Bell looked good. There was a part. So I'm all of you listening, you guys too. I don't know if you saw this, but Spencer Rattler said to Bell, I got you. And then never once threw it to him or had to play with him again the rest of the practice. So I want to see if Spencer Rattler ever does get him.
Do you know what I say? My final take right here. Give me Theo Johnson.